Hi guys, my name is Natalia and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books. So today I want to share with you my spring TBR. Now usually whenever I'm doing like seasonal TBR, I try to choose books, well maybe not all of them, but like at least some books that give off this season's vibes. I think there's definitely a lot of like books that give off fall vibes or winter vibes or summer vibes, but with the spring I feel like I don't know any books that give off spring vibes. I do love spring. It is actually my favorite season probably. I just love how colorful it is and all the flowers blooming, cherry blossoms. It's amazing, beautiful. Out of the books I've read and out of the books that are on my TBR, I don't think any have like specifically spring vibes. So instead of focusing on like books that give off spring vibes, I just divided my list into different genres. So the first one is fantasy, then we've got thriller, romance, and nonfiction. So let's start off with fantasy. The first one, it's Belladonna. I actually am going to read it this month because last video I did in TBR jar chooses my April reads. So some of these books were already in that video, some of them weren't. I'm very excited. It's like a gothic infused fantasy novel about like this girl trying to solve this mysterious death, and she will like form an alliance with death himself. So it sounds really mysterious and like dark and interesting, so I'm really excited to read this one. Okay, the second book that I want to read is Ruthless Vows. So it is a sequel to Divine Rivals, which was my favorite book that I read last year. It's a historical fantasy young adult novel about two rival journalists who become war correspondents who slowly start falling for each other amid a war between gods. It was just such a poignant and beautiful story. Also, the ending was so heartbreaking. I'm honestly scared. I'm not really scared, but I am a little bit anxious to read the second book because of how the first one ended. But yeah, I'm definitely so excited to continue this series because Divine Rivals was my favorite book of 2023. So I'm curious whether Ruthless Vows will be as good. Okay, so the next book is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This book takes place in the same universe as the Folk of the Air trilogy, which is one of my favorite series of all time. And here we follow Oak, who is brother of Jude, who was the protagonist in the Folk of the Air series. And there was this girl that he was like supposed to marry, but they didn't get married. So this story is about them. The Folk of the Air series had like a lot of political intrigue, so I'm suspecting this one might be similar, but we'll see. Next one is Once Upon a Broken Heart. So this one is also it's not a continuation, but it takes place in the same universe as a series that I had already read, and that series is the Caraval trilogy. Here we have a new protagonist called Evangeline, and she learns that the love of her life is going to marry someone else, and she is really heartbroken, and she wants Prince of Hearts to help her. And she will learn that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game. And the Prince of Hearts is actually Jax, who also appeared in the Caraval trilogy. So I'm really curious about this book as well. Okay, next let's go on to the thrillers that I want to read. Actually, there are only 2 thrillers on my list, and both of them are by Riley Sager, because I might make a video about reading his books. I already read Home Before Dark and I loved it. It's like one of my favorite thrillers that I've read so far. So I'm excited to read more of his books. The first one that I want to read is called The Only One Left. It tells the story of Lenora, who allegedly killed her parents and her sister, but technically it was never proven, and now she's like an old elderly lady, and there is this guy who is taking care of her. And she also cannot speak. She suffered a series of strokes, and now she can only communicate by typing on an old typewriter. And she wants to tell this guy the story of what happened to her family. So yeah, it sounds really interesting. I don't know what to expect. Probably a lot of plot twists. So has gotten pretty good reviews, so I'm hoping I will love this book. The next thriller by Riley Sager that I want to read is The House Across the Lake. Now this one, compared to The Only One Left, it doesn't have such good reviews, but one of my favorite booktubers, Haley Pham, she really loved this thriller. She said like it's one of her favorite thrillers of all time, and I don't know, I really appreciate her reviews and her recommendations, and I just want to check it out, you know. Even if it doesn't have such good reviews, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna love it, you know. So I just want to give it a try, and like the premise is very interesting. So there's this actress who's trying to like escape the streak of bad press, and she's staying at this family lake house, and across the lake there's another house where Tom and Catherine live, and she basically watches them in her free time, which that already is very creepy, but she will like realize that their marriage is not as perfect as it seems. So I think the premise is very interesting, and I just want to give it a try and see what I think about this thriller. Okay, next let's go on to romance books. So I don't read that many like strictly romance books, but I put 2 in my list that just sound really interesting, and I just want to give them a try. So the first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry, and Emily Henry, she's a very loved and popular romance author. Now I actually have never read any book by Emily Henry. That's probably due to the fact that I don't read that many romances, but I want to give it a go. I want to see what the hype is all about. And Happy Place, I've heard some great things about this book, so I just want to give it a try. The premise of the book is that there's a couple who broke up a few months ago, and they're going on like a vacation with their friends, but they don't want to like spoil the mood. So they just pretend that they are still together. I know the premise sounds quite silly, but yeah, I just want to give it a go. And the next book is Practice Makes Perfect. So technically it's like a sequel to When in Rome, but it has like different characters. So I think you can read Practice Makes Perfect without reading When in Rome. I don't know why. I don't feel like I want to read When in Rome. It just doesn't seem that interesting to me, but I do want to read Practice Makes Perfect. So I don't know, let me know if like maybe I should read When in Rome first, but for now I put Practice Makes Perfect on my list. So there's like this really hot bodyguard, and he is providing security for Amelia, who is going to marry Noah, who is Annie's brother, and Annie is the protagonist of this book. So Annie is trying to find, you know, a guy for herself, and there's this Will, this hot bodyguard. I don't know why this sounds so ridiculous, but yeah, there's this hot bodyguard, and I guess he will like try to help her find the perfect guy. I don't know how that's gonna work, but yeah, obviously they will end up falling for each other, even though they are like literally the opposites of each other. So I think that might be very interesting. I don't know, we'll see. And the last category is nonfiction. Now so far I have not read many nonfiction books, but I did find a few that I really want to read that just sound so interesting, so I added them to this list. Maybe I will end up falling in love with this genre, who knows. So First one is On Writing by Stephen King. So I've read a few books, the horror books that he has written, and like some of them I loved, some of them I didn't like that much, but generally I do like him as an author, and I definitely want to read more of his books. Now this one is not a horror, obviously it's nonfiction. This is like a part memoir and part like a writing class. Like I guess he's giving us advice on writing and just talking about his writing experience while also talking about his life. So a lot of people love this book, and he's just such an influential author that I think being able to just get to know him better and get to know his like writing tips, I think it's going to be a great experience. Oh yeah, I forgot I have this book because I already borrowed it from the library. So this is the cover. I don't know, I think there are different covers, but this is the one that I've got. Really excited to read this one. Now the next nonfiction book that I want to read is Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. So this woman, she is clinical psychologist, but she's also an influencer. So I sometimes watch her videos on YouTube or Instagram, and I really like her and I like her content. So I thought I just want to read this book and see what she's written or what advice she's given. It's basically a book on mental health and giving us advice on, you know, everyday struggles. And she talks about how to deal with anxiety, depression, criticism, how to build self-confidence, and all of different things. I'm really interested in anything related to mental health, so I feel like I will enjoy this book a lot. Okay, and the last nonfiction and the last book in this list is Into Thin Air. So this one talks about the 1996 Mount Everest disaster, and the author basically has survived this, and he talks about his experience. I can climb relatively safe mountains, but when it comes to like real mountaineering and climbing some really, really high mountains, I would never sign up for that. I feel like it's so scary, because even if you're so experienced, you can still lose your life, and I think that's terrifying. So that's why it's interesting to hear the accounts of people who go climb these really high mountains, and to hear them talk about the experience. I think it's so interesting. So I really, really want to read this book. So that was the last book on my list. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.